What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the format and we're going to discuss the rogue decks, and I think that this format is actually the perfect format for rogue decks to shine. We've been through so many broken stuff already, but Konami has dealt with pretty much the most part of it, and as we've seen with tournament results recently, rogue has actually seen really good representation and they've actually managed to top. So we know that this format, if you're planning to play a rogue deck, then this is your best chance to do so, because you never know when Konami is going to release a new broken archetype that is going to take over the meta and pretty much cover anything else, and nothing else will be able to do well. So this format, we're going to discuss the top 10 rogue decks, and keep in mind this is rogue, so stuff like sub-terrors that are not going to be included, or Drytrons, because I still think that these decks fit in the tier 2 category, and when I'm talking about rogue, I'm talking about even less than tier 2, maybe tier 2.5 or tier 3, but decks that can still do very well in the right hands and with right build, and you can even beat the tier 1 decks. So, before we begin the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now, let's get to the list. Number 10, Grandmaju. I think this deck has kind of been forgotten because people have been going to a new OTK deck, and I'm going to discuss about that in a bit later, but Grandmaju I think is still a really good OTK deck because people don't see it coming. When you drop a monster with 10,000 attack points and you one-shot them, then they're not prepared for that. People do not have something that can deal with attacks most of the time, unless you're playing against Dragon Link, which Heavenly Spheres is an annoying card to deal with if you haven't dealt with before you actually put Grandmaju on the field. But this deck has a lot of strengths. First of all, it does not really need its extra deck, so it's not going to lose to a Buster Lock or anything, and it's a deck that you can play two different ways. You can either play a full OTK deck with stuff like Dangers or maybe even Stromberg, people play that, or you can play a stun variation with pretty much playing Border, Floodgates, and then stall until you can get your Grandmaju. So you can innovate the deck however you like to play it the most, and both builds are really strong, and I think that this deck is very underrated these days, but I think that this deck can actually still pack a really good punch and win a lot of games on its own with just one monster. Number 9, Heroes. Heroes. Still a deck that to this day people will keep playing, and they will keep playing it forever. This is one of the most iconic decks of the game that people have been playing for so many years, and they're not going to stop. And the deck has got so much support during the past few years that it's just gone to the point where it can do pretty much anything. It can build a huge board going first, it can OTK very easily going second. Even people say that this deck loses to Buster Lock. Well, actually it doesn't, because if you somehow bait Savage's Negate, or maybe even Spheres, then you can just run over the Savage with just a Stratos and an Honest Neos, and then you can start using your extra deck just like that. So if you play cards like Dark Ruler no more, maybe play Droplets, then you can very easily break through a Buster Lock even without maining back or removal, because you have a chance to boost a monster higher than the attack points of the monster you're attacking. So this is why Heroes is a really good deck against the best decks, and against Rogue this deck can actually destroy anything because it has everything in its kit, and it's a really good deck. Number 8, Unchained, a deck that pretty much recently just saw the light of day again, because people have never tried this deck before. Only a few people were trying it and they were not doing that well with it. But this deck can actually pack a punch when you're trying to destroy your opponent's board, because you have so many ways to destroy cards, like the good old time True Draco when you were using something like an Amano Iwato and start popping cards one by one. Well, this deck doesn't have something like Amano Iwato, but it can pop even more cards because you have so many effects that destroy your own cards, your opponent's cards. Well, you get value out of you destroying your own cards, so this is why Unchained is a deck that going second can be a really strong deck, and also going first, it does have some kind of removal. The Link 2 is a sort of disruption, and the Trap as well is a break sword during your opponent's turn, and like I said, if you break your own cards, you get value out of them. So a really good deck, and if you're a fan of it, I suggest you try it out now, because it's a very good format for this deck. But if we get into a more combo heavy format, like that we have only combo decks, then you're not going to be able to play through a lot, because this deck cannot play a lot through negates. So this is why this is the only format you can be able to play this deck. Number 7, Salamangreat. People have stopped using this deck, but it's a really good deck still. I know that the main reason that nobody's using the deck is not because it's a bad deck, that it's because they have got bored of it. So, because we were playing this deck for such a long time, when it was meta, and then people never stopped playing it even after it got hit. And nothing has changed about this deck in the previous formats, it's just that people have actually got bored of playing it. So this is why you don't see it too often. But if you're a fan of the deck and you want to play it, then you can very well do so. The deck is really good. it's very consistent. The boards it makes are not the most impressive, but if you make something decent consistently enough every single game, that's good enough to win, because if you think of when the deck was meta, it was not doing much more. It was just more consistent in doing what it does with stuff like Stalio and 3 copies of Gazelle and Circle. The boards were similar, actually they were completely the same. Even now we have cards like Parallel Exceed, which we didn't used to have when the deck was at full power, so you can even slap a more easy rank 4 when you go for this deck. Also, with Dragoon, you can implement that if you want to have more power, so the deck is really good, the deck is very consistent, it can go first, it can go second, it can fit a lot of hand traps in it, so it can adapt to any format, and it can be a really good strong force. Number 6, Sky Striker, the Immortal deck. This is a new Burning Abyss. This deck does not die, people keep using it, they are like Salaman Great, people do not get bored of Sky Striker, and they keep using it every single format. The deck has a very small package that it needs to be implemented into pretty much anything, and then the rest of the deck can be like Zodiacs. You can play anything you want. People have been playing Kaijus recently because the deck cannot deal with Dragoon inherently. You can play as many hand traps as you want, and whichever hand trap you want, you don't really care what you fit in there, and you can play all the engines you think are necessary in order to combat the format, and while playing the actual deck, which is maybe like a 25 card deck, 20-25 cards that you need to play in pretty much every Sky Striker list, and the rest can be whatever you want. So this is why Sky Striker is a deck that adapts every single format. People keep playing it, people keep having success with it, and if you're a fan of the deck, then go ahead and try it out, because in a format like this one where we see so much variety, Sky Striker is a really good deck because it's good at beating everything. It has tools to deal with back row, tools to deal with combo, tools to deal with pretty much anything, so you're not going to have a certain trouble against pretty much anything in the format. Number 5, Altergeist. Altergeist has adapted the Dogmatica package, and this is why the deck has actually seen some success. I think pure Altergeist is not that great this format. Subterror is just a way better deck, but with Dogmaticas, Altergeist can get some more value out of their engine, and because you don't really care about special summoning multi-figure during your own turn, then you can just use Ecclesia or anything like that. But the problem is it locks your Fleur-de-Lis, but you can go away without using Fleur-de-Lis. Punishment is a good enough disruption, so depending on your hand you can go for either disruption you can get. But Altergeist is a deck that if it snowballs, then it seems absolutely impossible to defeat, because you get so much advantage of a single effect by tributing and getting stuff out of your deck, and by keep bouncing cards with Silky Twos, negating cards with Protocol, and just a massive amount of advantage. Your opponent is not going to be able to go through that, because it's like Sky Striker used to be when it had Engage, that if the deck got rolling, then was no stopping it. Altergeist still has everything it needs in order to do that, it's just that it never did it consistently, and it still doesn't do it consistently enough to this day, but still a really good deck. And like I said, you can play a lot of traps that combat the format, you can play in the side deck whatever you want. You want to main deck stuff that beat combo, and you want to side stuff that beat control. This is how the deck works, because the deck inherently has a bad matchup against combo, especially going second, but against control it's a really good grindy deck, so you can possibly outgrind it. So this is why people opt to play like that, but still a really strong deck. Number 4, Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss still has Beatrice at 1, but aside from that, it actually got everything back. Graph is at 3, Series at 3, so playing pure BA is actually a really good option now, because you can play the traps again. Before, when you had 1 copy of Graph and 1 copy of Seer, using stuff like Dino-Miscus, Karma Cat, Phoenix Windblast, whatever you want to play, they weren't that consistent because you didn't have the best discards. The best discards were if you have like some Skarm or a Fiendish Rhino Warrior to go for Skarm, because you had already gone through the copy of Graph and the 1 copy of Seer during your first turn, especially if you start with Guide. But now with 3 copies of each, you can discard them during your opponent's turn, you can use them during your own turn, and on top of destroying your opponent's cards and disrupting their plays, you get extra monsters on the field, and this is how the deck actually wants to do it, because if you're trying to play Beatrice Turbo and you only have a monster on the field, then yes, maybe you can disrupt your opponent, but you're not going to have enough monsters on the field to play. So if you keep a Cherubini on the field and you use these monsters during your opponent's turn, even if you have a Beatrice on the field, they will not get destroyed by their own effects because Cherubini will protect them, and this is why Burning Abyss now is actually a good deck, because on top of being able to beat combo because it can play a lot of hand traps, it can actually grind against control decks as well with stuff like Phoenix Windblast or Dino-Miscus, so being able to outgrind with those effects can actually help the deck a lot against random matchups. So this is why I think Burning Abyss is a really good rogue deck this format, and if you want to play it, then go ahead and do it. Now let's go to the top 3. The first one, the third best rogue deck of the format, Madolche. Madolche, I think, is the most wholesome deck that we've ever got that has not gone to the tier 1 status. I I think, in my opinion, the deck can do pretty much anything. The deck is mainly an OTK deck, because Tiramisu is an insane card that will never be power crept, because non-targeting removal that spins back into the deck is pretty much the best removal you can get. It's even better than banishing these days, because some cards get effects when banished, but nothing will get an effect when shuffled back into the deck. So this is why Madolche is one of the best OTK decks. On top of that, it has searchable disruption going first. The trap is a really good disruption, can negate pretty much anything, and it has extenders as well now with stuff like Salon. You can go for the extra normal summons, because previously, if your normal summon got stopped, maybe like an Ash or maybe a Veiler, then if you didn't have the best cards in your hand, then you were not going to be able to play. But now you can even extend your combo even after getting hand trap with Salon with the extra normal summon, so you can do your plays uninterrupted after you've gone through your opponent's one hand trap. Unless your opponent has multiples, then there's nothing you can do about that. Also, the deck has the ways to play stuff like Gozen Match. Can play stuff like Dish Shifter. It's cards that other decks are not that great in playing because they get hurt themselves, but these two cards I've mentioned do not hurt Madolche whatsoever, so you can main deck them without any fear. And these cards, they are pretty much blowouts against anything. Dish Shifter going second can destroy a single deck's entire strategy. Gozen Match does the same when going first. So I think the deck has the tools to combat anything, but for some reason people just don't seem to believe in the deck a lot, nor to play it a lot and see some success with it. I'm pretty sure that if more people were playing the deck, then we would see it a lot more, because I think the deck has the potential to destroy anything. They just prefer to play other decks instead of this one. But if you're a fan of Madolche, then I guarantee you that if you build the deck correctly and if you learn how to play the deck efficiently, then you're going to win so many games. So if you're a fan of the deck and you just feel that the deck doesn't have what it needs, I'm guaranteeing you that it has everything that it needs. So go ahead and try it. Look up builds, look up how to play the deck efficiently, and then you're going to see so much success. So, yep, Madolche as number 3. Number 2, Phantom Knights. Phantom Knights and Burning Abyss now has different archetypes, so what a world we live in. Before, these decks were always the same, but now, the only Burning Abyss package you would see in a Phantom Knight deck is pretty much playing like 3 Tour Guides, a Graph, a Seer, and Skarm. That's the most you're going to see in a Phantom Knight deck. Phantom Knights, with all the support they got in Phantom Mage, they've actually adapted in being a pure deck of their own, so with stuff like the rank ups, you can get into a big boss monster that you don't really need stuff like Beatrice or Dante in order to do damage anymore. I mean, the deck has pretty much anything. It has one-card combos with Thorn Scales, it can search disruption with Fogblade, with Silent Boots. It's a really, really good deck. It can go first, it can go second. You can main deck cards like Twin Twisters or cards like Droplet while getting advantage of the discards, which is something that a lot of decks can't really do. So this is why Phantom Knights get a lot of advantage of cards that discard for cost, because you get the cards you discarded back while also destroying your opponent's entire field by maybe Dropletting a combo deck or Twistering a back row deck. So Phantom Knights, a really, really good deck, and I think it has a lot of potential, so that's why I put it in number 2. And now the number 1. So about this deck, the number 1 strategy that I chose to be the best rogue deck of the format is actually kind of ironic. So the number 1 is Numeron OTK. Fun fact, this deck got attention after Zexal got banned, because people were reminded by the ban list that the deck actually exists. Before Zexal was banned, nobody was using the deck, not even as a pure deck, not even as an engine. People were just opting to play Zodiac with Eldritch, or maybe even Dogmatica. Nobody was playing Numeron. They were not playing Numeron in Subterrors. Subterrors were playing the full Dragoon package with 3 Red Eyes Fusion and 3 Red Eyes Insight. They were not playing Subterror. They were not playing Numerons. So yeah. Now that Zexal got banned, people were reminded that the deck exists, and they actually tried to make it viable. And it is a really good deck. It's a really good OTK deck. It's the better Grand Magi of the format, because it can play stuff like Lava Golem. It doesn't need its normal summon, so you can play Lava Golem, destroy your opponent's entire board, because a Kaiju is not enough to defeat a Dragon Link board. A Lava Golem might be, if they have just the Heavenly Spheres and Savage equipped with the Buster Lock, then Lava Golem is going to destroy this entire board. And just being able to OTK with one single Numeron's field spell, the Numeron Network, then you can't get more consistent than that. You have so many ways to get to that field spell that you just need this field spell in order to be able to OTK, and the rest of the deck can be hand traps, can be board breakers, can be back row removal. It can be whatever you need in order to fight the combat, in order to combat the locals you're playing, or the format you're playing in. You have to adapt to whatever you're going to face if you know what you're going to face. Otherwise, you can play pretty much anything in order to be able to fight anything in the main deck, because you don't have space issues. It's the one deck that you need like 15 cards that just are standard, and the rest can be whatever you need, because you just need a Numeron Network. If you get it, then you have the OTK. and the rest of the extra deck can be stuff for going first. So the deck is not that bad going first. I mean, yes, Zexal got banned, but just playing a numeron network, getting the 4 gates on the field and going for an Appaloosa for 4 negates is not bad. You can summon Megaclops as well. If you know that your opponent is playing a deck that cannot deal with Megaclops, then yes, that card can win you games on its own, because against decks that have no way of dealing with it, then there's no way they can get it, they're gonna get past it, so you can just beat them with it. So yeah, the deck actually saw play after Zexal got banned, and we have seen that in recent tournaments it has actually gotten tops. So we know the deck is good, and we know the deck can fight pretty much anything. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that now we're seeing the deck, but better late than never, I guess. So yeah, we've seen numerons, we've seen that it's pretty much the best rogue deck we've seen, and it might not even be a rogue deck. For now it is, but soon if it keeps topping, then it might be upgraded to tier 2 or even tier 1 status, but we'll have to wait and see for that. So yep, that's the video, guys. I know that a lot of people are going to mention other decks, but go ahead. I mean, this is not absolutely the best list, because there are so many decks that can win right now, so it's not like there's guarantee of what's better than others. I mean, any of these decks I said can be interchangeable in their places, because they might be able to beat another deck that is ahead of them, but still, in a format like this, where we can play pretty much whatever we want and still be able to win, then you can argue that anything is a rogue strategy or even tier 2 strategy. So go ahead and comment down below what decks you think are going to be good, if you think I've missed anything, because I know there are a lot of decks out there that people know how to play, that people know are good, and maybe I'm not that good with them, so I don't think they're good, but you guys can correct me if you think that they have a lot of chances. So yep, let's have a discussion, let's see what other decks can be good. So because of the more decks we figure out that can actually be really good this format, then the better we're going to make the format, because it's going to have more variety, and this is what actual Yu-Gi-Oh should be, not having 1 or 2, 3 decks being the most played ones and nothing else can top, but a format like this where you can pick up anything, and if you get good enough with it, then you can win. So yep, that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.